Hi, it's Richard here from Fearless Speakers, and in this session we're mainly going to be talking about practice and getting feedback. But there is one other subject which I wanted to touch on first of all, and that is the subject of using props and visuals. Now, I think there's a key rule of thumb here, which is that it's great to bring your talks to life with images, with videos, with props you've brought on stage with you. But the important thing is that they enhance your message rather than detract from it. So you could have this amazing, elaborate prop with you, but if basically all the people that watch your talk come away remembering is the prop and not the message, then essentially that prop has failed its purpose. So always be really careful thinking about what you're going to include. And remember, of course, the usual death by PowerPoint mantra. So make sure if you do include slides with text on, that you keep that text to a minimum, because the problem with long text is that people are trying to read and listen to you at the same time. And basically people can't multitask. So make sure that if you do have some words, they really emphasize what you're saying rather than detracting from it because people have to read it. So a really great example of someone who uses a prop to really draw the attention of the audience and get them intrigued into her story is Amanda Palmer and her TED Talk, The Art of Asking. So I'm not going to spoil the surprise. Go ahead and watch that TED Talk and see what you think. Okay, so we're going to move on now to practicing and getting feedback. So in terms of practice, I think if you're going to be giving a really important talk, like your first TED Talk or indeed any TED Talk or your signature talk, you really need to get that practice under your belt. Get it to the point where you feel comfortable that you know what you're going to say without having to have a script in front of you, but not so much that you feel bored with it. So I think it's quite a thin dividing line as to how far you go. But for me, the most important thing is quality of practice rather than quantity. So what do I mean by that? So first of all, just reading through your script isn't really going to do very much for you. So at the start, you probably will need that script in front of you to remember what you're going to say as you're practicing. So start by speaking out loud. Just speak it out loud, get a bit of a sense of the rhythm of the words, the pace, the emphasis you're going to put on certain points if you need to do that. Just get a feel for that to start with. And then once you feel comfortable without having the script with you, then start practicing out loud. First of all, in front of a mirror is great, because then you can check out your body language, your posture, to see whether you're coming across in the way that you actually think you're coming across. Then you might progress to videoing yourself, for example, with a smartphone. And the great thing about that is that, of course, you can record it and then watch it back and really get into the little minutiae about different sections. You know, is your particular point here coming across? Again, are you doing things that perhaps might be a little distracting? So this is an absolutely fantastic way to assess how you're progressing with your practice. And then you might graduate on to practicing in front of a friendly audience and getting some feedback from them. So if you've got a trusted friend or family member who's willing to sit through your talk and give you that really open and honest feedback that you need, then that's really ideal. Now, they might need a little bit of prompting in terms of what to give you feedback on. So here's some examples of things that you might ask them to tell you about. So, for example, you might ask them, well, what do you think my key message is? Remember, this is the most important thing that's running all the way through the talk. So if they can't tell you that, or in fact, if they think that the key message is something different to the one that you thought it was, then that tells you something, right? It tells you perhaps you might need to tweak things, or maybe you just need to change your key message. Maybe it's moved on from your original thought. Next thing, does the flow of the talk seem logical? Can the person follow what's happening, or do they get lost in the details? Next one, does my performance seem genuine? So here it's important that the more authentic and real you can come across, the more likely that people will warm to you, they'll feel connected to you, and therefore your message will get across. So really get feedback on that. Am I seeming genuine, or am I seeming perhaps a little bit disingenuous or even stilted or wooden? Final thing then, do I do or say anything that's distracting? So sometimes we all have these little habits that are perhaps distracting to others, perhaps in the way that we phrase things or in the way of our body mannerisms. So this isn't really to make you become less of yourself, but it is just to highlight some certain things that perhaps you might be doing that might put certain audiences off. So it's really great to know about that and then just decide what you want to do about it. Great, so we've talked about feedback and practice. So in the next video, we're going to be moving on to what about when you actually give your talk and what you might want to be doing around repurposing it, tweaking it for the future.